Let's get into the very murky waters of politics. Bloomberg Next Africa weekly newsletter published today points to 4 military takeovers in the West African region so far in 2021, including 2 in Mali and the latest in Guinea. So, what were the socio-economic undercurrents of this military takeover, and what do they mean for other sub-Saharan African states? Let's get some insights now as Joseph Ochieno, international political journalist and economist, joins me on the program. Touching base with you again, sir, good evening. Hope you had a very nice week so far. Let's get straight into this. About 4 military takeovers in West Africa between Mali and Guinea so far this year. Are you having memories, Joseph, of the 1980s military coup, such as the one in Ghana by Jerry Rawlings, the late Jerry Rawlings?
It's extraordinary, Bosom. It's good being with you again today. In my weekly column, the Sunday Monitor, I suggest that it will be 50 years this year that Idi Amin overthrew the democratically elected government of Dr. Milton Obote here in Uganda. So it's mixed. But that said, really, we actually thought we had been done with these military coups across the continent, or up to, I think, one of the last conversations I had on your program, I was praising West Africa, that you guys were leading on the democratic front, but I think I was substantially wrong. Yes, extraordinary, 4 military coups, 2 in Mali, and I was just looking through and thinking as I was driving back home, to just say that Mali is one of the most sophisticated, one of the earliest civilizations on the African continent, and yet it struggles. But yes, in Guinea, seemingly the prints about military takeovers would normally be the same. Bad economics, corruption, bad leadership, human rights abuses, along those kind of lines. Is it usually true? In most cases, by and large, it is the case. And yes, as I said, in this case, Mr. Conte just about extended the constitution, extended his rule. Obviously, he had done his 2 terms. If only, and I suggest, if only he had perhaps honored the original constitutional provision and not extended his rule. And I think that is a message perhaps to many of these guys who keep on extending their constitution, which sort of really is the new mode on the African continent, extending constitutions.
The ECOWAS, which is a sub-regional body for all leaders, has condemned the military overthrow in Guinea as in previous coup, but little has been done to say reverse it. So how do you respond to that? Is that a toleration? Are we seeing a toleration of military coup?
What would they normally do, save for the Gambian question where Nigeria, by and large, almost literally instructed that perhaps they would take action. And that was rather impressive from the Nigerian authorities at the time. That was my view. I really don't know what you would normally do if these coups do take place in any average African country, short of actually basically, rolling tanks into their capitals by member states. It's very unlikely that regional organizations would normally do that. I really think that the answer to these the strengthening of the democratic institutions regionally and on the continent. The African Union will condemn. The African Union will say that you suspend, in this case, suspending Guinea. But beyond suspension, I think it's basically just talk, cheap talk. Really, if we want a determination on these matters, regional bodies and indeed the continental bodies should be making noises when these guys are amending constitutions, when these guys are abusing the rights and basic rights of their citizens. They should be actually strengthening the rule of laws, not only within and by member states, but putting those as preconditions for membership. So, in other words, if an average democratic country, say like Ghana, opts to take a particular position, economic, social, or otherwise, in this case, perhaps legal, which is seen to be in contradiction to the regional organization ECOWAS, or indeed the African Union, at that stage, these bodies should be able to take positions. But to wait when these coups actually take place, I'm not quite sure whether the firepower that went to Iraq or indeed Afghanistan by the Americans and their allies would necessarily apply anywhere on the African continent. Of course, I wish they would.
Sometimes we were, perhaps. But the armed overthrows in Mali and Guinea, Joseph, rode on the back of frustrated youthful populations, economic mismanagement, corruption, and so on. Is this a likely template for a political change in a number of sub-Saharan African states? You know, a number of African economies suffer from this economic mismanagement, corruption. Do you think there could be a repeat of this as a basis for the military to take over in a number of African states moving forward?
I was thinking about that, especially reading from the templates, if you like, that the coup leaders in Guinea suggested. As I said, they tend to be standard. They'll go back to Idi Amin's time in 1971, and yet the Ugandan economy at the time was very thriving. No, I think it depends on the institutional structures in the respective countries. Their dictatorship in my own sub-region, but it's very unlikely that tomorrow we will wake up with them, overthrown. And some of this dictatorship will be rather repressive. The economic outlooks would not normally necessarily be very, very good. I think some of the countries where these things actually occur, like in Guinea, is just basically misfortune. And of course, historically, Guinea has not really been has really not had very, very good experiences. It's really, really unfortunate because this is the first time we had a Guinean leadership that had been democratically elected. I think going forward, I don't know what would happen, but it's just a lesson for us, the African continent. But a template, I'm not sure that it is likely to be the case. If anything, I think tonight many of the respective member countries and governments are reviewing their intelligences and making sure that opposition voices like ourselves are watched and observed, and that perhaps, in cases where some of their own internal guys are being cheeky, they're purged. That is the sad story of Africa.
Let's stick a little bit with West Africa. Look at Ivory Coast, Joseph, and Togo and Cameroon, where the 88-year-old president in Cameroon is some of the folks don't really know where he is, whether it's in France, in Paris, wherever he is. But definitely it's not in Yaoundé or in Douala. But it's been in power for many years. Do you think elongating democratic space from first term to second term or even third term or so, has it really led to economic freedom, or is it just more of the same? The more you look, the less you see.
If I have heard you right, if you call it elongating democratic freedoms, it's actually not elongating democratic freedoms. It's actually entrenching the power of patronage, where even if many of these nations had been democratic, and even if and when the economies had been stable and perhaps growing, as soon as and immediately you begin to, if you like, entrench a system, complacency comes in, patronage comes in. As I said, in the African continent, many of the countries you've mentioned, there's a huge amount of corruption. So really, any economic gains that would otherwise have prevailed, gets lost in lack of domestic confidence, lack of global confidence, and in many cases, limitations in terms of possible likely inward investments that these countries and economies would otherwise benefit from. So no, elongated power on the African continent, however democratic in quote they might be, are just as bad as military coups, and I think the sooner these extensions of power I check on the African continent, like I was saying, Bassett, that maybe these are the things that regional organizations, particularly the African Union, maybe might need to impose permanent African term limits, but it's neither here nor there whether or not these are possibilities. No, it's a shame in the Cameroons of this world, and it's not really going anywhere. And particularly a quick one on Ivory Coast. Okay. Considering the manner in which this guy came in, it's really, really a shame that this guy could actually consider extending his rule, and it's really a shame on this case.
Yeah, on a final note, very quickly, we've seen winds of political change sweeping through Malawi, Tanzania, and very peacefully recently in Zambia. Are you hopeful that you folks in part of SADC community and a bit in the East African community will see these leadership changes result in socio-economic development? Give me 1 minute or less.
I think I do hope so, really. Zambia is a fantastically beautiful case, and they're extremely hopeful. I actually noticed the figures around you there that there's some every indication that there may be just about the beginning of a turnaround, a green shoot of recoveries, if you would call it, in Zimbabwe. So those are great possibilities, and I think SADC is perhaps, if we are talking about anywhere the possibilities, the good news at the moment in the SADC region.
Okay, thank you for your time on the show this evening. Enjoy your weekend. Joseph Ochieno, international political journalist and economist out of Uganda.